What I'd like to do today is to look at the central core of the education, I think, regarding the teacher, and that is the inner work of the teacher. This is an aspect of Steinway education which is invisible, it's intangible, and for me is absolutely one of the essentials. Steiner speaks repeatedly in many different ways about the importance of teachers doing inner work, which is working on themselves, thinking deeply about things, leading eventually to a meditation of some sort. This, as I said, is invisible. You can't, in a way, see whether people are doing it or not, but over the course of time, it fundamentally changes what kind of person you are, and then also what kind of teacher you are. Steiner often says that the most important thing for a teacher is not that they deliver content, which is important, but that isn't the most important. The classroom strategies and so on are also not the most important. The most important thing is who the teacher actually is. When they're about to walk into the classroom, what is going on inside them, how have they prepared themselves inwardly in order to meet the class they're just about to teach. There's an image which he gives which I personally like, which is, imagine yourself looking down a school corridor at someone who's just walked out of the staff room and they are going to teach whichever lesson to whichever age group. And he said the most important moment of a lesson is not when you're standing in front of the class, as the word doing the business, teaching. It is when you're standing there with your hand just going out to turn the door handle to begin to enter. And that's a really interesting picture which happens in thousands of schools, thousands of times a day. And he said that at that moment, what is really living in you? Are you still thinking about the disagreement you had at home before you came to school? Are you thinking about the cooking program that you saw last night? Are you looking forward to the cooking program which is going to be on again today? Or is what's going on inside you, is it then really pondering some deep question? You're pondering the mysteries of life kind of thing. And he said what is then happening is going to be very different depending what your answer is to that question. There's a little bit from the end of the first lecture, the Foundations of Human Development, which I'm just going to read for you. For those of you who have hard copies or the electronic copies, it's towards the top of page 43. And he says, there can be a major difference between the way one teacher and another enters the classroom. There can be a great difference, and it does not depend simply upon one teacher is more clever than another in superficial pedagogical techniques. Whether we as teachers would agree they're all superficial, but no. It doesn't depend upon whether someone is more proficient in the craft of teaching. Rather, the main difference in the effectiveness of teaching comes from the thoughts the teacher has during the entire time of his or her existence and brings into the classroom. Now that is really quite a statement. It's a very big statement, it's a very broad statement, and he's basically saying, as far as I take it, are you someone who really thinks deeply about life? And if you really are pondering those big questions, the totality of the thoughts you have had during your entire existence, really what is going on inside you. And he said, depending what the answer to that one is, that is going to be a measure of your effectiveness. There's another I'm just going to read further. A teacher concerned with developing humans affects the students quite differently from a teacher who never thinks about such things. That is, as we're just restating the same thing, that really, what are you carrying inside you? If you think back to when you were at school, it could be in high school or primary school, there were likely some teachers you just admired because they taught you stuff. I mean, that is a wonderful thing. When you were younger, you likely had teachers you really loved because they were kind, they were nice, they looked out for you, they were fair. And when you're older, you possibly also had teachers who you may say to some degree were wise. I mean, I really hope that you might have had some of those, and that what they were carrying inside them was this, as it were, lifetime's experience, this lifetime's richness of thought. And I think that is the beginning of a way into what Steiner meant when he was talking about the inner work of what teachers do is really essential. In the second video, which I'm just going to make in a second, I'm going to be talking about an initial set of exercises which Steiner gave, called the 6 basic exercises. Before I do that, I'm going to mention one exercise, one activity, one practice, which Steiner gave to many people individually, particularly in the earlier part of his work. He used to go around the continent and he would be an esoteric teacher to lots of people in small groups or individuals, and to individuals he gave various verses to meditate on, and he also gave one exercise to almost everybody. It is the verses used to change greatly, and the suggestions of how to do things were changing greatly, but there was one thing which was constant, and that was a looking backwards through the day before you go to sleep. And he frequently mentions the importance of this, the advantages of sometime before you go to sleep. You can do it in bed. I personally can't do it in bed because I'm asleep in a second and a half. But sometime shortly before you go to sleep, just to start going backwards, through your day. What happened today? And go through in backwards order. It doesn't have to be in incredible details, certainly not to start with, but just to slowly know, what have I just done, what did I do before that, what did I do before that, what did I do before that, and see if you can get to the morning, just as an activity. There are many ways of potentially explaining why this might be a good thing to do. I mean, aside from it's really good for mental agility, it's really good as a thinking exercise. I was told only yesterday there'd been some kind of study done, and that kind of mental activity really reduces the risk of Alzheimer's. That isn't why I suggest you do it. But we all know that things happen and we process them. You process a tremendous amount during your sleep. Overnight we do process what we have done during the day. So really just recalling, bringing things to consciousness again before going into sleep, and working all these things through in a different way. If you bring them to consciousness, then that is a different activity again. I have just been talking to some students about this, and the question came up, what happened? What if something nasty happened today? And I am not wanting you to go through those things in agonizing detail. If there's something you really don't want to touch, I think you're going to be having no difficulty remembering that it happened. So it's going to be there anyway. Just as it were, if it's a difficult moment, acknowledge it, but just skip over and keep on going. There is an advantage of not blocking things completely, but I'm not saying go and really dwell on it if that isn't where you're comfortable. And if you do this day after day after day after day after day after day, it's meant to be, as it were, a never-ending exercise, one you don't stop. It becomes much easier, and the review just becomes part of your daily routine, like brushing your teeth. I don't suggest you do it at the same time as brushing your teeth, because I think you're adding another level of difficulty there. But just actually, as a word, try and build that one into your daily routine, and see if over a little time, see if you notice any difference. So that was the backwards review of the day, which Steiner gave to all his students, and in a moment I'm going to be doing one on the 6 basic exercises. Thank you.